and good afternoon. So what are the latest regulation changes in Asia? I'm not going to review the actual regulations, but just give you insight of what are the changes and how it's going to impact your products. ASEAN starts with alphabetical order. So ASEAN is the first one in Asia. ASEAN is a group of 10 countries, and we are here today in one of them. A little bit of number, ASEAN, 620 million population, and a GDP per capita that goes from 78,000 in Singapore, is the fourth highest GDP per capita in the world, and down to, I think the lowest is Myanmar or Laos, but I don't have the figure. I didn't find the figure, but these are just to give you an order of where it stands in terms of GDP per capita, not purchasing power parity. But it's important to know that there is a disparity in the economic development of the countries in ASEAN, and there is a wide change in the market as well. Now, the ASEAN Cosmetic Directive, which was approved in September 2003 and came into force between the 1st January 2008 and the 1st January 2011, depending on the countries, is now in force in all 10 member countries of ASEAN. It's modeled after the 6th Amendment of the EU Directive. Why the 6? Why not the 7? Why not the regulation? Well, because it was in 2003. So in 2003, Europe was on the 6th Amendment, and the 7th Amendment was published in 2003. So the ASEAN one was finished. The definition is the same as the EU. There's only one category of product. Any product that you consider, from the soap to the whitening products, to the hair dyes, to the makeup, to perfume, all of these are cosmetics. That's nothing else. And ingredients are regulated by the annexes to the directive. You have the Annex 2, which is the list of ingredients that are not allowed. Annex 3, ingredient not allowed except for specific purposes. That's what we call the restricted ingredients. And then you have positive list, Annex 4 for colors, Annex 6 for preservative, and Annex 7 for UV filter. The numbering is a little bit, if you are familiar with the new EU regulation, where 6 became 5 and 7 became 6. ASEAN kept 6 as 6 and 7 as 7. And there are a little bit of differences between the European annexes and the ASEAN annexes. Not much, but a little bit. Now, what is new in ASEAN? Thailand has transposed the ASEAN Cosmetic Directive into the local regulation, and that happened only a few months ago. So the good news is Thailand is the last one to have done the transposition. For various reasons, in 2004, the Parliament was not in place, and the priorities after that were different. But thanks to the previous Prime Minister, who was a lady, she liked cosmetics, and she pushed for the Cosmetic Directive to be transposed into the local regulation, and it has happened, I think, in June or July this year. Now, a warning. There will be a first amendment to the ASEAN Cosmetic Directive, and this will be discussed at the next meeting in 10 days here in Bangkok. What is going to come out of that, I don't know, okay? I can't give you insight of what's going to happen. There is one article in the directive that is illegal because it says that ASEAN has to follow the changes in the annex in the EU and adopt them automatically. That must be changed, but hopefully there isn't going to be any other change. But I don't know. the meeting is going to be in 10 days. After that, make sure that if you're a member of the association of the country, you get the information through your country's association. Now, new, Indonesia. Indonesia has created barrier to trade. They don't want your product to come into the country. So all these have been new regulations in Indonesia. There's an increase of non-tax revenue, so an increase in notification fee. So it's going to go from, for non-ASEAN product, is going to be 1.5 million rupiah versus 500,000 for ASEAN product. That's 3 times more. And if you need to import the products, there'll be a license fee of 100,000 rupiah per product. If you want to translate, I think it's about 13,000 rupiah is $1, $1 US. So 500,000 is roughly $40 US. Pre-shipment inspection, there is a regulation that was issued in 2012. That regulation has just been canceled. I modified my slide last week because 10 days ago they canceled that regulation. So no more, that's a good one, no more pre-shipment inspection. Import tariff increase. If you're importing your product from outside ASEAN, the tariff will go from 5 to 10, between 10 and 15%. So you'll have to pay more duties at the custom. Priority import license. There's a new regulation 2013, and based on the track record of your company, they'll give priority in the import license delivery. So you can imagine that this is creating some issues and problems. New heavy metal testing. So the regulation is a revision of an old regulation, but it demands that each batch of imported product must have the heavy metal result in the certificate of analysis. So if you import a finished product, each batch, okay, not every shipment, not only in one shipment, if you have 3 batches of the same product, then each batch will have to have the data on heavy metals. And there are 5, lead, mercury, arsenic, and cadmium, mandatory, okay? And that your test result your data must be not older than 6 months. So if you import the same batch 7 months later, you have to reissue your certificate of analysis and data. Halal certification, that's a presidential decree from this year, and it's applicable as of 2019. Products that are halal certified can bear the logo halal. Products that are not certified will have to bear the non-halal labeling. I can only tell you that as an ASEAN association, we try to make this non-halal labeling not mandatory, in the sense that if it's halal, you can, of course, mention it and inform your customers, but that's about it. There's an income tax on imported products of about 2.5% on cosmetics. That's a new Ministry of Finance decision. And then there is an import license regulation where you must have an import license before the products arrive at the custom. If you don't, then you lose your import license. You no longer allowed to import a product for the next 6 months, and all the goods are shipped back at your cost. Now this may change because the president of Indonesia in last week speeches said that he wants to eliminate technical barrier to trade. A year ago, he said we have to create technical barrier to trade to prevent importation of products from outside Indonesia. This year, recently, he changed his speech to the reverse. Is that going to change the regulation? I don't know. But be open to hopefully a reversal of some of these barriers to trade. Now, they are country-specific. I told you the ASEAN Cosmetic Directive applies to all the countries, but the way it is applicable and the interpretation is a little bit different. In Indonesia, you must notify with the full quantitative formula. In Thailand, for example, you have the qualitative formula and you have to put the percentage of the restricted ingredients. That's the case in many of the other countries. In Singapore, they don't have to put the formula at all. But in most countries, qualitative and percentage of restricted ingredient. Indonesia, full quantitative formula. The notification number must be printed in the packaging. The expiry date is mandatory. In the ACD, it's either manufacturing date or expiry date. In Indonesia, expiry date is mandatory. The name of the primary manufacturer. So if you're using an OEM, the name of the OEM must be on the pack. You need to have a certificate of free sale from the country of origin, and the letter of representation must be legalized. The letter of representation is the letter from the company saying, I authorize this company to sell my product. That letter must be legalized at the Indonesian embassy in your country, and that's also not free. Thailand, the notification number must be printed on the packaging, and for some products, mainly facial skincare, you have to upload the picture and artwork on the website, because some companies try to cheat and notify as cosmetics products that were used with needles. Vietnam, you need a certificate of free sale, and again, the letter of representation must be legalized there. In the other countries, you must have a letter of representation, except Singapore, but it doesn't need to be legalized. In Vietnam and Indonesia, it must be legalized at the local embassy. Okay, China. China, small country, right? Only 1.35 billion population, and an administrative structure that is a little bit different from many other countries. You have provinces, you have autonomous regions, and you have directly controlled municipalities for the 4 biggest cities. Today there are 2 categories, normal cosmetics and special cosmetics. Special cosmetics are these 9 categories: sunscreen, spot corrector, anti-pigmentation or whitening products. Any product that made claim about anti-pigmentation, whitening, etc. is a special cosmetic. Slimming, breast care, hair growth, hair color, perms, deodorant, and depilatories. All these are special cosmetics. And the requirements are very different. For example, locally made normal cosmetics, you need to notify in the local FDA. And usually, you can start the manufacturing before you have the license approval, and you don't need to submit samples for testing. That takes about a week or 2 weeks to do the process of notification. But if you import the normal cosmetics, as well as all special cosmetics, whether imported or locally made, you need to have a full dossier for registration and send it to the central FDA. And it will be reviewed by the technical expert committee. You have to submit samples. They will be tested for hygienic chemical properties, which means heavy metal. You'll have a test for methanol. You'll have toxicology tests, eye irritation, skin irritation. They're done on animals. And sometimes, for example, for sunscreen, they do test the SPF of the product to make sure that what you said is correct. The tests for regulation, the registration are mandatory. So chemical, microbiological, and toxicology tests. All these tests are mandatory. You don't do them yourself. You have to submit the samples. They are done by an authorized laboratory by the authorities, but you pay for them. Okay. And based on claims and the formula, they can add additional tests like human patch test, SPF or PA. What is new is they accept your report. So it doesn't need to be done in China. If you have a test on SPF test on human, done in Australia or in the US or in Europe, you can use that. If you have a PA in vitro test done in Thailand or anywhere else, it's accepted. Human use tests for safety, they may do them. Impurities test, for example, if you have your product contains talc, they will do a test to make sure that it's free of asbestos. And they do an ingredient test for sunscreen, anti-spot, anti-acne claim. So they'll check, measure the level of the active ingredient in the finished product to make sure that what you declare is correct. Registration lead time, as I said, 2 weeks, which is a notification for locally made normal cosmetics. And it takes up to 12 months and more sometimes for imported product and special cosmetics as local or imported. So you have two different highways, a speed one, normal, local made, and a slow one, normal, imported, and special cosmetics made locally or imported. So try to get new products in the market very quickly. Yeah, very quickly. Takes 12 months. Not that simple. So, what's new? Sorry, that's still in the old one. You have a list of ingredients that can be used. There are 8,783 ingredients. I didn't count them, but they're numbered on the positive list. You cannot use any ingredient that is not on the list. So there are today more than 20,000 ingredients in the INCI dictionary. So out of these 20,000, you can only use this many. If your product formula use only ingredients from the list, you can submit for registration or notification. If you want a new ingredient, you'll have to register the ingredient. And in the last, I think it's more than 5 years, 6 or 7 years, only 3 ingredients have been approved. So it's basically impossible to get a new ingredient on that list. So it's a major blockage to innovation. And what happens is today, there are websites where consumers in China order their new products, and people travel to Jeju Island in Korea, to Hong Kong, to Singapore. They buy the new products, buy the suitcase full, bring them back to China, and fill the order, ship it. It's a new business. What's new? There's a new Cosmetic Supervision and Administration Regulation, CSAR. The first draft was published in November 2014, so just a year ago, for comments. And the industry associations, the ASEAN Cosmetic Association, among others, submitted comments to that first draft. The authorities took the comments and revised the draft and submitted the second draft in July this year, for further comments. So we did, again, send comments on the new draft. The key principle, and that's new, okay? The responsibility is with the manufacturer. The person, company making the product, you're responsible for your product. Whether they are locally made or in products, it's exactly the same. No more local normal and imported normal taking different routes, the same route. Product classification is based on risk assessment and claims. So they change again and simplify the classification. The definition is the same as the European definition or the ASEAN definition, which means that oral care products, which today are not cosmetics, will be cosmetics tomorrow. Toothpaste, mouthwash become cosmetics. Still, we don't know about soap, because soap are, if you look at the definition, they are products to be applied on the external part of the body for the purpose of cleaning. So they should be cosmetics, but it's still in limbo because people are asking the FDA for questions, and the FDA has not answered because it's a draft. Special cosmetics, the number of categories will be lower than it is the 9 I mentioned earlier. New ingredient, the approach will be based on risk management, and they guarantee a notification with answer given in 90 days. They said 30 working days. I translated that in 90 calendar days. But compared to the 3 approval in 5 years, I'm sure the ingredient supplier here, you will be happy to know that within 3 months you'll have an answer. And the answer will be yes, the answer will be no, we need additional data, or you will have no answer, and if you have no answer, it's a yes. So that's great news because and it's a simple notification system, they'd say, but we don't know the modality of application. But they say in the draft that it will be a simple notification system as opposed to a full dossier. The new in the regulation, mandatory GMP compliance. Today, it's not mandatory. It will be mandatory in China, like it is in ASEAN. It's mandatory. It's mandatory in EU. It's highly recommended in Japan, in Korea, and all other countries. There's a mandatory safety assessment. So safety assessment, like in ASEAN, like in Europe, it will be mandatory, and you must have a safety assessment report in your product file. Your claims must be substantiated and validated. Interestingly there is that your substantiation in the draft, according to the draft, will have to be on the FDA website. So companies are saying, well, but it's confidential information. I don't want to give my test report to everybody in the industry, including my competitors. So we're trying to tone down that part. Adverse effect monitoring, defective product recall are going to be mandatory. There will be only one license for the company, a manufacturing license or an importer license, but no more. Today there are several ones, some obtained from the local FDA, others from the central FDA, others from the Institute for Quality Control. That's finished. Tomorrow, only one. And there's a new advertising law which was published on September 1st this year. So if you're selling your product in China, make sure they meet the requirement in the advertising law. So the new CSAR will be more aligned with international practices, focusing on consumer protection, and hopefully will promote innovation and competition among companies rather than be a blockage to innovation. Now, if you sell your product to China through Jeju Island, Singapore, or Hong Kong, these sales will decrease once that one is in place. India, 1.1 billion, 28 states, 7 territories, divided districts, etc. Animal testing, if you didn't come to my previous talk at 2 o'clock, the animal testing is banned in India for locally made as well as imported products, and it applies to the finished product as well as the ingredients. And it's as of 2014. That regulation on metrology of packaged good requires all packaged good, including cosmetic, to bear on the top of the main display panel a red or brown dot for non-vegetarian products and a green dot for vegetarian products. Now be aware that in India things are expeditive. The law is published and it's applicable 2 weeks later. Okay? So it's applicable as of 1st of July 2014, last year. But there's no definition of what is a vegetarian cosmetic. I assume that if it contains animal ingredient, it's non-vegetarian. If it does not contain animal ingredient, it is vegetarian. But if your stearic acid is animal or is it vegetable? If you're using a stearic acid derivative, you have to make sure what is your supplier using. Korea, you don't need any registration. You need a certificate of free sale. You need the formula notarized and a BSC certificate to import products. There is a list, negative list, positive list for preservative colors and UV filters like in many other countries. There are functional cosmetics, whitening, sunscreen, anti-wrinkles are functional cosmetics. There's a positive list of active ingredients and you must register your product. It takes a maximum of 6 months. Today it's more in the 2 to 3 months for registration if you have the ingredient in the positive list. You don't need to have all the ingredients in the positive list, but you need to have at least one from the positive list to be able to claim and register your product. On the other side, acne, except acne wash. Acne wash is a functional cosmetic, but acne treatment is a quasi-drug. Mouthwash, hair dyes are quasi-drug, which means that registration takes about 10 months to complete. So what happened in Korea, you don't have acne product, you have a product. The letter A is sufficient for the consumers to understand that this is for acne. And then because you don't mention acne, it's not a quasi-drug, it's not a functional cosmetic, it becomes a normal cosmetic and you can sell it immediately. Animal testing ban on finished product as of January 2015. So as of this year, no more animal test on finished product, not on ingredient, finished product. And it's only when available Korean in vitro test method exist. So yes, they do exist. They are validated for eye irritation and skin irritation. So be aware of that. No more animal tests. There's a new cosmetic recall process. So if your product is not compliant, you'll have to recall it. If there are adverse events, you'll have to recall the product. And there is stringent penalties put in place. If you don't have a distribution manager, you have 3 months where you cannot sell the products. If you violate the recall process, 6 months of sales and manufacturing ban. Advertising during an advertising ban, you have to pay 3 months of sales, okay? And you cannot sell your product for 3 months. So it's not only you cannot sell, but in addition, you have to pay during that period, all the sales you have during that period. Antibacterial claim has been banned. and it's only allowed for a cleansing product with in vivo supporting data. So you can't say, my product contains triclosan, so it's an antibacterial. You need to have in vivo data to support the antibacterial claim on your product, not on the ingredient. Organic claim not allowed unless it meets the Korean organic standard, and 95% of the ingredient, except water and salt, are organic. So if you were here at the organic presentation on Tuesday, there is a ISO standard coming up on organic products and organic ingredients, as well as natural products and natural ingredients. For the ingredients, the standard will be published next year. For the finished product, probably in 2017. Taiwan. Okay, 2 categories, cosmetics or medicated cosmetics. There's a negative list, a positive list for sunscreen, preservative, color, hair dyes, antibacterial, and antiperspirant. You see that the positive list is a little bit longer, covers a lot more category than in the other countries. For all cosmetics, you only need to notify. You put the product on the market quite easily. Medicated cosmetic, 4 to 6 months. And whitening is no longer a medicated cosmetics. It used to be, as of this year, it's now a normal cosmetic in Taiwan. They've aligned the allowed color with the EU Annex 4. They aligned the nanomaterial risk assessment with the EU. And there is a bill to ban animal testing introduced in Parliament. And most probably it will be passed next year. So animal testing will be banned in Taiwan in 2016. Thank you.